Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Back and Forth with Becker and Orr. I'm Clinton Orr. That is Kevin Becker. We're going to have some fun today. What is on the agenda today, Kevin?
Well, today we got a few topics we want to look at. We want to look at whether or not we should be paid less from working from home, especially if we move out of the downtown area. Other things we're talking about, we'll talk about Janet Yellen, aka the head of the Fed at one point. We're going to discuss things along the lines of Wonder Woman's opening on December 25th and how that bears for theaters in general. And then what are you watching on TV? I know what I'm watching, but what is everybody else doing? And finally, we get to our question of the week from our clientele. Why don't you start us off, Clint, and lead us in?
Absolutely. We're going to get to all of that. But just a reminder, you can get a hold of us. We want you to like the video. We want you to subscribe. Or if there's a topic we didn't tackle, let us know. You can also visit us on the website. You see it right there on the bottom of your screen. So with that aside, let's get into it here. We'll bring up the board. The very first topic, Kevin, and you mentioned it, working from home. And I found that I got my notes here. You can tell I'm reading this off the screen. It's official.
You're prepared.
It was a survey done by Willis Tower Watson. They talked to 344 North American companies, both Canada and U.S. That was covered in the Financial Post. It was covered in Bloomberg. And 1/3 of the respondents, of the business owners, they said they'd be willing to cut workers' pay if they moved away. So if they're in a big metropolis, let's say they're downtown Montreal, they're in New York, or they're in Silicon Valley, and they move away to a cheaper area, these folks said they would cut the pay to compensate. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting concept to deal with, and I can see where they're coming from. I mean, all of a sudden, the commute's not there. You're not spending the same money going in and out. And especially when you're looking at the tech companies, the Facebooks of the world or things along those lines, now all of a sudden, these guys have been working from home beforehand, and that's going to become a permanent job, and they don't want to pay the fees. Well, why am I paying you the same amount of money when your cost of living has gone down by 1/3? So there is rationale I see behind it. Whether or not it's ever going to take off, I don't know. What's your view on this, Clint?
I understand where they're coming from. They're saying there's a lower cost base, why they should have to pay the same amount. However, if you were in that person's shoes, say you're the worker, you're doing the exact same job, but now you just get paid less, that's hard to fathom. That's a tough pill to swallow, in my opinion. So corporations would have a little tough, and I think it'd have an impact on culture, I think of an impact on morale. Personally, I don't think it'll take off. We'll have to wait and see. I think if there is an area it will gain a bit of traction, it's going to be in the big tech companies. Like you mentioned, Zuckerberg has already said Facebook is looking into this. Google has hinted they're looking at this as well. So maybe that will be leading the charge, those big tech companies. But personally, I don't think it'll go much beyond that. Am I out to lunch? What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I think that you're pretty much the same way. I mean, it's a hard thing to try and scale back somebody's salary that they're going to make on a yearly basis just because they've moved. I mean, if they'd gone from New York and they wound up saying they're sitting somewhere in Iowa and doing the same job, you can't just sort of say, well, okay, just because you're here, you're going to pay less money, especially if it's the same thing you're doing. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a hard concept. As we're doing, why don't we move on to Wonder Woman here? What are your concepts on Wonder Woman opening on December 25th?
That's right. So to bring the context here, it's opening December 25th. They are technically doing a global release. I'm not sure how many theaters in Canada it's going to be showing at because most theaters are closed. And they're also doing an online release on Christmas Day. And that's the whole new model. We're seeing more of this. We had the online release from Mulan earlier in the year with Disney. Do you think this is the new business model? Are we going to see more of this online concept going forward for the big releases?
I think that's definitely a possibility. I think it's going to depend on how fast the vaccine and whether people are going to want to come back to the theater. Like flying in airplanes, people do not want to sit in a place sometimes when they're arm to arm next to each other for fear of catching something. The HBO Max that they're going to release it on, unlike Disney's Mulan when they did it, Disney did a $30 one-time charge. HBO isn't. So basically, if you sign up for HBO Max, you pay the normal fee, you're going to get Wonder Woman for the first month. But yeah, I mean, it leads me to the whole concept of, is the theater business dying? It's hard to tell at this point. I do think it'll be a while before it comes back, but this may be the new model if it works for everybody else. What do you think?
I'm on the same boat. This is definitely not a good news story for movie theaters. This is the big blockbusters trying to find a way around the movie theater so they can keep making money. I think that'll be the bottom line. Can they still bring in the big bucks like they used to with the global releases? Can an Avengers film still make $1 billion if it's released online? If that is the case, well, that's really bad news for theaters, but it might be a little too early to tell. It might be too soon to make that comment firm, a little too soon to say.
Yeah, I think it is too. And the other factor is that, being at home, I can't spend $15 on food. It's a lot cheaper if I do it that way.
I need my big popcorn, my overpriced popcorn.
Exactly. Oh, moving on from there, I guess we'll get into dealing with what are you watching on TV? I mean, this whole concept is basically what it's doing. I mean, if we're stuck at home and we're being able to see blockbusters, that's great. But if the blockbusters aren't coming out at home, what are you watching right now on TV?
Yeah, my wife and I, we just cut our cable. We were through a cable provider before. We just stopped that. We only have streaming services now. And I don't think we're alone there. I think that has certainly become a trend. And like you said, the movie theater business taking a bit of a hit. I think the cable and that kind of traditional television also taking a bit of a hit. Part of the reason why is their bastion, their kind of best tool in the fight against the streaming services was live sports. And now live sports in the pandemic has kind of gone to the wayside, so they're losing some of their tools in that fight. And then just this morning, I found out many of the sports channels have some kind of streaming option. So you really don't need to go through the cable provider anyway, even if you wanted those live sports. So it's a tough call. That business model, like the movie theaters, the cable companies, they're feeling the pinch here. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you brought it up as more of a generational thing. I mean, if I take a look at it from where my parents would sit there, I mean, they're still basic cable. They want to be able to get their news off of NBC, CBS, CTV, whatever the case may be. Same sort of scenario with live sports. I mean, golf's still being played, and if they don't have to pay for it and it's on TV, they'll watch it that way. But again, 1 out of every 4 people in this pandemic has signed up for a subscription service, whether it's Prime, whether it's, Hulu, Disney, Netflix. That's just telling me that more and more it's going on to content, the content that they want there. I mean, all of a sudden the streaming services are offering you one low price. They've got large, deep libraries, and they allow you to watch as many shows as you can, as fast as you can. I mean, my kids are into binge watching, as it were. So, 5 or 6 episodes in a day isn't a big deal. I'm used to it comes out on Monday. I can't see the next episode till the next Monday. So yeah, I think it's a change in the model and the way things are going. And for cable to survive, they're going to have to find a way to either compete or they're going to have to reinvent what they do.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It will be very tough, specifically with all the content. You hit the nail on the head there. I think we're kind of in a golden age for content, for streaming, for TV. If there's a niche, a show that you want to see, there's probably some high quality content in that particular area. I mean, look at the Emmys. We're talking about this morning. It used to be, It was all traditional TV. Now it's tough to find a traditional TV show that's even nominated for an Emmy. So the content is certainly on the side of the streaming services. But if we're moving on here onto a financial topic, Janet Yellen, Joe Biden is getting his cabinet, getting his positions in order, and he let it known that he's thinking about Janet Yellen for the position of Secretary Treasurer. We get lots of ways we can talk about this. What are your first thoughts, Kevin?
Well, I'm always used to referring to her beforehand as the head of the Fed. She was the chairman of the Fed from 2014 to 2018 until President Trump decided that she no longer needed to be there. I think it's a good move if she accepts this position once she gets passed through the Senate, which I think will be more of a technicality. She's more of a centrist, which I think is what the U.S. at this point in time is going to be looking at. They want somebody that's not too far left, not too far right, that's going to be helping with how the decisions in the Treasury are going to be made. So overall, I see appointing her. She's got tons of experience. She's been doing these things before. She's presently working for a think tank. So we're dealing with an intelligent woman here who knows how to deal with these sort of concepts going forward and not to make it too political. What do you think about her?
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is absolutely a moderate pick. If you think of the spectrum from far left to far right, Janet Yellen's pretty much down the middle or close to down the middle. In terms of market reaction, I think the markets are going to like Janet Yellen. They know her. There's less surprise factor there. Markets tend not to like uncertainty. But having seen her as the chair of the Fed, having seen her low interest rate policies, I think that gives them a little bit of confidence that she'll work well with the current head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, and we'll get less surprises here. So I think in terms of market reaction, it's going to be positive, and we'll see more certainty going forward. So I think it's a smart pick, and I'm looking forward to getting a little more benefit from that going forward. Anything else on Yellen before we move on to the question of the week?
Yeah, well, I guess the last point to mention is she's a woman of a lot of firsts. She was the first head of the Fed, as it were, and now she will be the first woman head of the Secretary of the Treasury. So I guess the only other one after that is she could be the first female president, assuming Kamala Harris doesn't do it one of these days. So yeah, other than that, I think it's a smart choice, and we can see where we go from there. What do you got next for us, Clint?
Absolutely. Let's get into the question of the week. We love to do this every week. Take a question from a listener, from someone we got from a client. And Kevin, what did we come up with this week?
Well, actually, I was taking a look around, and my son was asking me the other day, he goes, Dad, how do I start getting invested? How do I invest my money once once I have some, I guess is the best part for his case. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a question that we should tackle. What do you think are the best concepts to start with, Clint?
Yeah, we can go through details here to start TFSA, RSP, ETF, mutual fund, and there is some value in that. But my biggest takeaway, my biggest advice for anyone thinking, how do I get into the investment market? Simply start. Saving at that stage is more important than investing. You need to build the habits. You need to get in the habit of putting the money away on a regular basis. Get in the habit on living on less than you make, so you have that money to save on a regular basis. And with a long time frame, compounding is working towards your benefit. It works in your favor. The longer the time horizon, the bigger the impact of compound interest. So the best thing I could say, simply start. Build those habits, start saving. The details can be tweaked over time, but the faster you build those habits, the bigger the benefit. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the easiest concept for anybody. I mean, it's a matter of making sure you don't spend as much as you make. I mean, unfortunately, governments don't realize the same thing going forward, but this is an important key concept that you need to look at. And again, in today's world beforehand, I mean, schools really don't teach you the art of dealing with your money as a concept. So, I mean, the internet allows you to explore certain things, allows you to search for questions you might have, but you're right. I mean, it's the basic concepts first. Don't worry about, do I need this stock? Do I need this bond? What ETF should I be holding on to? Let's put the money away first, let it compound, let it grow. Then we can start going into, okay, well, maybe I find a nice mutual fund to start with, whether that's with an advisor, whether it starts at the bank. These are the key points we should look at. I agree with you completely. On that note, is there anything else you want to add?
I think we've covered it all. And a reminder for folks, you can get a hold of us. If there's a topic we did not tackle and you want us to tackle next time, reach out to us. You can visit us on the website on the bottom of the screen. You can phone, email, lots of ways we can get a hold of. Kevin, how do you want them to get a hold of you?
Same sort of way. Look, find out, get onto the website, call my phone number if you need to. Now, I'd love to say I'm 24/7. If not, leave a voicemail. I will return it as fast as I can, and we'll go from there. But other than that, I've had a great time doing this today. Closing point, Clint?
I think that covers it. So for everyone, we're going to have another video real soon. We'll see you soon. Until then, everybody stay safe and take care.